The book of Joshua, session 57. We continue with chapter 22. We ended at verse 26, where we saw that the 2.5 tribes had good intentions and that God knew their heart, that they just wanted to be close to Him, and that's why they built the altar. Therefore we said, let us now prepare to build us an altar, not for burnt offering, nor for sacrifices, but that this altar, verse 27, may be a witness between us, between our 2.5 tribes and you, 10.5 tribes, as well as our generations after us, that we might do the service of Yahuwah before Him with our burnt offerings and with our sacrifices and our peace offerings, that your children may not say to our children in time to come that we have no part in it. Then let it be, when they should say to us or to our generations in times to come, that we may say again, no, you can't say that we have no part in Yahuwah. Behold the pattern of the altar of Yahuwah that our fathers made, not for burnt offerings, that is against the Torah, but is a witness between us and you. So they erected a memorial stone. We've discussed memorial stones, which is there as reminders for us so that we don't forget the lessons of history. They erected these stones of the altar to be a witness for future generations, that the 2.5 tribes may not ever be cut off from the nation of Israel. Because the moment you are cut off from worshipping the God of Israel, you are also cut off from the nation of Israel. You are also cut off from the nation of Israel. And they wanted to have their generations, although they are far away from Shiloh and far away from Jerusalem, and on the other side of the Jordan, they didn't want to feel cut off from God. They wanted God to also be close to them. And here I want to show you something amazing, because God does indeed know the intentions of our hearts. And God knows that where we are separated from the original covenant and the original promised land, and the original Garden of Eden, and the original Tree of Life, and the original relationship with having God in His burning presence form on the mercy seat, inside the tabernacle, inside the sanctuary. Although we are so, even now, prophetic, these 2.5 tribes are us, separated, far away from God, far away from covenant, far away from all these promises and all these exciting the situation where you find yourself in, where God is inside your midst, inside the camp physically. They felt too separated from that, and that's why they did this whole thing of building the altar. And God understands that, and God makes this promise. I want to show you this promise. Look with me at the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 11, verse 16. Therefore I say, says Yahuwah Elohim, although I have cast them far off among the heathen, and although I have scattered them far into many countries, yet will I be to them a sanctuary in the countries where I have scattered them. Beautiful. Father, even though the 2.5 tribes are on the other side of the Jordan, if they wish to worship you, if they remain faithful to your covenant, if they keep your commandments, if they love you with all their heart and their strength and their being, then you will live amongst them. They don't even need the altar. They did it because they were scared that Israel was going to cut them off from worshiping you. You understand the desires of our hearts, that we want to worship you. We are not going to fly to Israel to go and look for the temple or to find the Ark of the Covenant. Those things are no longer there. Yes, you're going to restore them, but now they're not there, and we are far away from it. But you have made your word become flesh. You have made your sanctuary to be something that can be in every tribe, nation, and tongue. And when we keep your Sabbath, when we hold fast to your covenant commandments, and when we keep your instructions that you've given to us lovingly as your peculiar treasure nation people, your bride, your servants, your sheep, your fish, that you have sent fishermen to come and catch. When we are returning to you, you are in every tribe, nation, and tongue, in every scattered corner of this earth. You are to us a little sanctuary. You are going to live amongst us. You're going to be with us. We can come together in our own houses. Just like the 2.5 tribes could come together at the altar and just be reminded, this is the God that we worship. His altar is built with whole stones, on which no tool has come to chip away anything, according to the Torah. We're not going to bring sacrifices here because that will be against your will. But we have this little reminder, this little witness that shows us you are with us. So we also scattered into the most southern tip, far away from your promised land. You are a little sanctuary to us. We can come around your altar. We can come around your throne in worship and prayer and obedience. And we can come together and call upon your name. And you are a little sanctuary. You live inside each one of us as living stones of your temple, of your body that you have built. We are being built up like these living stones. And you come and you live amongst us in our camps, in our houses, in our midst, in our little congregations, wherever we are. You are that little sanctuary. We were scared that Israel was going to cut us off and not allow us to even mention your name. That is what the house of Judah is doing currently. But we know that we are not dependent on them. Even if they cut us off, even if they don't want the prodigal son to return home, even if they want to call us heathen, because we worship your son, that is part of you. That is echad with you, that has been proceeding out of your mouth from the beginning, the word with which you uphold even the sun, moon, and stars still today. That word, we recognize that word as Yod He Vav He, our Yeshua, our Redeemer, our Savior. We recognize your word that is, no, you have given it to us. It's in our mouths and on our tongues. And every time we read and talk and pray your word, you are the sanctuary amongst us. You are living with us. You have not left us alone. You will never leave us alone if we return to you. And while we are still in exile on the other side of the Jordan, you are an altar with us. You are the witness with us. Your word is the witness. The power of your prophets and your law. The law and the prophets, the law and the testimony, the law and the witness is our altar. It is our sanctuary. And we can indeed have you with us as well. So we understand so sympathetically exactly what these 2.5 tribes were trying to achieve. So they tried to explain this to the 10.5 tribes. Therefore, we said, it shall be to us that in the future generations, we will say, behold the pattern of the altar of Yahuwah. God forbid that we should use this against Yahuwah, to rebel against him, to turn this day away from following him, to build an altar for burnt offerings or meat offerings or sacrifices, besides the altar of Yahuwah that is before the tabernacle. So they do know that they are not allowed to build an alternative altar besides the altar that is in the tabernacle. But they just wanted to build this altar as a witness for them that this is their congregation point of worshiping Yahuwah. They're not going to use it for sacrifices, as the altar at the tabernacle is used for sacrifices. Then when Phinehas the priest and all the princes of the congregations and the heads of the thousands of Israel, of all the tribes that were with him, heard the words that the children of Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh spoke, it pleased them. Then they finally understood. They came there with their swords drawn. Oh, we're going to make war with you. But when they just relaxed, when they just settled down, and they just listened to what their brothers were saying, if the house of Judah today can just settle down and just listen to what the lost brothers and sisters are saying, if the angry Christian religious church system can just settle down and just listen to what the brothers and sisters are saying, how we want to worship God on His terms, even in our exile, then maybe there can come a bit more reconciliation between all these scattered tribes. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, said unto the children of Reuben and the 2.5 tribes, this day we perceive that Yahuwah is indeed amongst us, because you have not committed this trespass against Yahuwah to start sacrificing on your own. Now you have delivered the children of Israel out of the hand of Yahuwah. So by not trespassing the Torah, you have made sure that the curse of trespassing the Torah does not come upon all of us. And indeed, we now understand what you were trying to do. You weren't trying to transgress the Torah and thereby causing the curse and the plague to hit us as well. You just wanted Yahuwah to be close to you. We now actually understand that. We now understand that you only really wanted to have Yahuwah close to you. Because like like Ezekiel said, God said, I will be a little sanctuary among you wherever you are. Because originally in Exodus 25 verse 8, God said, make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them, according to the pattern of the tabernacle that I showed you in the heavens, he told Moses. So we as the 2.5 tribes know that there's a pattern of the heavenly tabernacle and sanctuary. And now that we are not inside the earthly replica of that, now that we are on the other side of the Jordan, we still want to be part of the Jordan. We still want to be part of that. And therefore we wanted to make another copy of it. Because this is the sanctuary where God dwells amongst His people. And we just want God to dwell amongst us as well. We remember how God instructed Moses in Leviticus 26, verse 11 and 12. And I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul will love you, and I will walk among you, and I'll be your God, and you shall be my people. Because we remember this is what God says. When His sanctuary is within our midst, He walks with us. He is our God and we are His people. And that's the only reason why we did this. We just want God to also be amongst us, and we also want to be His people. This is the reason we built the altar here. Because we know that we are now far away from Shiloh. But we want to be drawn closer through this altar. We know that we can't shed blood on this altar, but at least we know that the blood shed on the altar at the tabernacle, on Yom Kippur, and on Pesach, and on all the sin offerings, that brings us closer. All of us who are far away is brought closer by the blood on the altar. Ephesians 2 from verse 11. Therefore remember that you, being in times past, you were Gentiles in the flesh. You were uncircumcised by all those who were circumcised. You were called uncircumcised. And at that time you were without Messiah, the living Torah. You were aliens, you were strangers to the commonwealth of Israel. You did Israel. You had no hope because you had no God. But now in Messiah Yeshua, the living Torah, the living word that God is sending out into every tribe, nation, and tongue, you who were far away, you are now brought near to God by the blood of Messiah. And God understands that intention of their heart and the conflict that there was between these two groups of people, the 10.5 tribes and the 2.5 tribes, right? Prophesying how the northern tribes were exactly 10.5. The northern tribes, that the 10 tribes with half the tribe of Levi that went to the north and got scattered through the king of Assyria into every tribe, nation, and tongue, they were exactly 10.5. And Judah and Benjamin, with half the tribe of the Levi, got scattered to Babylon and came back and is now the house of Judah. That's exactly 2.5 tribes. So it's beautiful how these cycles and these witnesses out of history proves this kingdom restoration that God is planning by having his manifestation on earth, his right arm on earth, his breath, his ruach on earth, his word, Yeshua on earth. Having that bring reconciliation between the lost tribes and the house of Judah, bringing reconciliation to his seed, the seed of Abraham, that is scattered into every country of this world, that has to come back into the commonwealth, into the covenants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because this is the plan of God through Messiah, who is the sanctuary. When we discussed the book of Exodus, I showed you how Messiah is in every single element of the tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant and all the ornaments inside the sanctuary. How he is the one that brings the two houses, these two groups of people back together. Look at the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11. It shall come to pass in that day that Yahuwah shall set his hand, Yeshua, again the second time, to recover the remnant of his people who have been scattered through Assyria and Egypt and Pathros and Cush and Elam and Shinar and Hamath and the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, a banner, a sign. And he shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and he will gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And then the envy of Ephraim, the 10.5 tribes, shall depart, and the adversaries, the enemies of Judah, shall be cut off. Ephraim will stop their jealousy of Judah, and Judah shall stop their troublemaking for Ephraim. This is beautiful. This is the highway. Yeshua is the way, the highway. Verse 16, there shall be a highway for the remnant of my people, which shall be left from Assyria, like it was in the day when I brought them up out of Egypt. Out of our little sanctuaries we have, scattered all over the earth, God is the one, through the blood on the real altar, in the real tabernacle, in the heavenly place, on the mercy seat in heaven, on the throne of God. God is able, and will he be able, through his hand, his right arm that became flesh on this earth, to gather the Ezekiel 37:2 sticks of the house of Judah and the house of Israel. And here we can see again our repeating witness cycles, how we are taught this, the end time prophecies through the book of Joshua. So Phinehas and all the priests and the princes went back to the 10.5 tribes, and they told them all the things that the 2.5 tribes have explained to them. And the thing pleased the children of Israel, and the children of Israel blessed Yahuwah. and then stopped their intention of battling with their brothers to destroy the 2.5 tribes. And the children of Reuben and Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh gave the altar they built a name. They called the altar a witness. In the Hebrew, it is Ed, Aleph, Dalet, Ed, E-D, and that is the Strong's H5749, and it's got the root word of Olam Dalet, the Olam Vav Dalet, Od. Ed and Od means witness. It means to return. It means to repeat. It is a witness that is repeating and echoing and witnessing over and over again from the most ancient times up to today, all the way until the final sanctuary comes out of heaven back to earth. These are the witnesses. That is why when the New Testament says that the saints of the end days have the law of God and the witness of Messiah. These are the witnesses of Messiah. That is repeated throughout the Old Testament, prophet by prophet, verse by verse. And this is what we are searching out together, so that we can build the witness inside of us, and we can be classified as these end-time saints who has the law and the testimony, who has the commandments and the witness, who has the testimony and the witness of Messiah Yeshua in the law of the Old Testament. These are the end-time saints that will be gathered. The remnant of the seed of the woman will be gathered, and out of every tribe, nation, and tongue we will indeed stand together on the sea of glass, and worship our God that has given us witness after witness. We cannot forget. The witnesses are written on stone, and then the renewed witnesses are written on our hearts. And we have all these witnesses black on white, printed for us in our scriptures, so that we can learn from them. We have no excuse. And this is the beauty of the